forget movies. When you actually strangle someone, it takes, because you can strangle someone, like choke them and they pass out and wake back up, but to strangle them to the point where they are dead, it's a lot of energy. And that's 3 kids. And I know they're small kids, but that's still a lot of energy. And she had, what, you said less than 3 minutes or something?
Yeah, it wasn't very long. It was like literally like 9 minutes or something.
He's not like combating her or saying like, you know.
She said she did it after she jumped.
Yeah.
So I had time to do all that, use all my energy,
and then
cut
commit
myself
suicide.
up, and then jump when I'm paralyzed, and still somehow tell you? I'm not sure if you've seen everything that's happening in the world right now, but Alyssa, I don't know about you, but I'm overwhelmed.
It's very overwhelming. It's like there's something new breaking every day. And frankly, I don't really know how everyone's dealing with their mental health, because it's like there's one thing and then there's another. It's like, do I even turn on the TV, or I don't know. It's crazy, and I'm sure we have your opinion and I have mine about how we feel about everything.
I definitely do. I mean, we're going to be discussing the Carmelo Anthony case, which the retrial is wild work. The Lil Durk case, I think it's super early. As of this filming, we're on day 2. I think they're about to select jurors. And what does that mean in terms of music and lyrics and
the First Amendment and freedom of speech and arts, but also I never understand people who have a level of money and freedom. Take your family and go to Hawaii. Why are we still doing these things that could even get us in trouble? I'm not saying he's guilty or not, but like even having any type of like involvement in anything like that. Because I know this is all linked to King Bond's death in 2020, but that's like 6 years ago now. So this is like spending, I don't know. I can't fathom it because it's not my experience, but it's a lot of heavy things. But there's that, and then there's what, Lindsay Clancy?
And we're both moms. I don't know about you. I've had postpartum depression. I did with my first, and so it's very overwhelming. And then it's also so dark. Sometimes I almost wonder how much access we have to all these trials, and should we even know this much? Because the way my mental health is set up, sometimes I'm like swiping past it, and then you have politics, and then you have Trump, and the world is on fire, and then we're in the middle of a war, and then there's Iran, and then there's Iraq, and then what is?
And America's very sensationalized, whereas like in other countries, they technically can't have cameras in courtrooms. They can't release so much information until something is fixed or done with. But here I feel like the more they could get, it's almost like a TV show nonstop.
We almost forget these are real people.
No, these are real people. And it's like there are so many cases out there, so many things that happen on a like regular, but not all of them get blown up. And the ones that do, like Carmelo Anthony, like a Nolan Wells, and some of them ended up blowing up because of like, you know, I saw a Nolan Wells incident on Threads before it became massive. And I was like, oh, we need to find this boy. Like, why is no one? I was reposting it and it blew up. And it's just like when you compare his situation to Carmelo's, it's like, okay, from one instance, you're like, if my son got killed in a confrontation defense or whatever, you would be upset. But at the same time, like, wouldn't you want your child to defend themselves if they were in danger?
100%.
And then you have Nolan Wells' situation. What is going on with that? Because a kid does not just disappear and die. And he's the one singled out amongst peers who are different to him. So I don't know. It's. I have my opinions.
And I want to be very clear. I don't know everything. I haven't studied everything. I have no legal background. But like Alyssa just said, we have opinions on it all. We'll get to the Lindsay Clancy case because I think for me, it reminds me so much of, I think it's Andrea Yates back in like 2001, 2002.
She drowned her kids, right?
Yeah, all 5 kids. And, insanity. But we'll start with the Carmelo case just because there's the retrial, the judge recused himself. Who decides what justice looks like? And for example, Alyssa, as somebody who is always normally the only black person in white spaces, even is it considered to be a fair trial if there was nobody black on? And not to say that there would be any bias, I'm just saying the fact that there were no black faces as jurors I find really interesting.
I feel like the area matters a lot. I'm not from America, I'm Persian and I was born in England. England has its own issues with racism, but it's very different to racism here in America. I have seen every state here is different, and I feel like if you have a board of jurors who are all of a specific race, I don't think you can accurately understand the experiences of the person who is being accused because you haven't lived those experiences. And I'm not saying by automatically putting like 3 black people, it's going to make a difference, because there are also some people who may not care about race and only care about this kid died. Like, it depends, but I think it is very unfair. And I think, were they all, like, was there any other races?
They were all white.
Yeah, see, that's problematic. That you can't, I feel like you're going to naturally get like a biased juror, I don't know, and were they all moms and dads? Were they all, right. You have to take that into account too. Or what if it's people who weren't parents? What if it's people who just, because remember, these are people who are normal working people going to work every day. Some people just want to get out of there.
Right.
Some people just don't care. Some people they're going there with an agenda to make sure he goes to jail. So I think it is very unfair, and I do think that based off the facts that I've read, and just to clarify, like, I'm a reporter, so I know how to read facts, but I am not, while I know media law, I don't know law. I was not there. I cannot tell you what happened. I'm not psychic. But I just feel like this case in particular does need a lot more read into it, and we can't just say he is guilty, because I have seen other cases of the script has been flipped and that person has gotten off.
We've seen it in Florida.
Yep. So also we've seen people go to public areas with automatic weapons and get off. So I'm
also very true. I think there's so much happening, and this trial is going to take a while, and considering he was already considered guilty before, he got 35 years, or sentenced to 35 years. But one of the things that's also come out is the fact that not one, but 2, the judge had to be recused because he said they did the right thing, which, as a judge, is a very fascinating way to go publicly. Like, what are we doing?
I think judges need to, I watch a lot of like fictional TV shows, but inspiration always comes from truth, right? Like, these things don't just blow up out of nowhere. I think judges need to just be quiet. If you have it, like, of course now we know what your intentions are. Great, thank you for being a blabbermouth. But that is very interesting, and I think that alone should just show the direction that we're going to be going in. Yes, of course he deserves time, because some sort of time or some type of
someone.
But 35 years, I mean, these cases are different. But like, look at Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Like, she manipulated a whole. I mean, we saw what came out about her today, and how she was caught on prison tapes using the N-word and being very derogative to the community, who actually were like, wanting her to be released. Sorry, I can't even talk. But it's crazy, because she got out. She literally manipulated a whole guy to kill her mother for her, and obviously she was getting abused and whatever, but this is self-defense. It's clear that it's self-defense, and you're giving him 35 years.
What's fascinating about that is, though, it's what you just mentioned. There's also a lot of things from the original trial that were not put into evidence. For example, they had a sidebar deal where they wouldn't put their characters on blast. And then talk about like the text messages that just came out, again, as of the recording of this, 24 hours ago, like the text messages of the Metcalf twins, and the fact that Austin, when he was 10, pushed a girl and she was hurt and was sent to the hospital. The fact that they've used and graffitied, really racist things, and put the KKK and did all the things, and then talked about black people and the way that they bullied folks in high school. And also something that I want to make sure I mention. And we're both journalists, by the way, so this is really, really important to me, the way that things are written. Right now in the news, the way that everything's being stated is Anthony 19, Austin Metcalf 17. But at the time of the incident, they were both 17.
Yes.
So folks are having a fit over an adult. No, they were both 17.
See, that's really bad, because how titles are framed can naturally affect how your brain processes things. And why would they even be in the same school if he was not, use your common sense. And I think it's very kind of disgusting, if I could say, to allow maybe all these things to be said about Carmelo, but then the other party, he would, like, where's all this information before? Why do we now see this? Trayvon Martin's case will always like hurt me. Like, we were all like young when that happened, but I still to this day do not understand why that man, I don't want to say his name, is free. Yeah. Because like I can't even look at a bag of Skittles the same, but it's just like you lay out all of his negativity on why he got killed, but not this man's. And here it is the opposite, but it's like there needs to be a fair, if you're going to do it to one person, do it to the other. Once again, I'm not excusing what happened, but I just think it's unfairly done, because what if it was the other way around and he lost the fight and he died?
Right.
What's the reactions going to be from the parents then? And I don't know.
And as somebody who's a new high schooler, this is a very difficult conversation to have, but having to have the Trayvon Martin conversation, having to have the conversations about even like defending himself and what that looks like for him is an interesting place to be as a mom, which actually segues me into the Lindsay Clancy case. We're on day 18 as of this recording.
You know what's crazy? I was watching a new horror movie last night, and it kind of touches on the mother's mental health, and then the kid. In this case, it was caused actually by a demon because it's a horror movie. But I know in her case, she's saying she heard voices, and this is why she strangled her 3 children with, what was it, an exercise band? Yeah. I think we've all been depressed. We would be lying if we say we haven't all been depressed. I think the issue with America as a whole is a lot of people don't know what's wrong with them. Like, I was 23 when I got married, had my kid by like 25, young, COVID, couldn't talk to my parents, hid the whole pregnancy. Very terrifying situation, but also very sad the entire time, because I felt like I was losing my childhood almost, and the ability of being a kid, because now I'm responsible for one. And I didn't know what that was. And I was also working, and I had no time off to like, you know, just sit there and understand what was going on. So I just continued going. And I think all of that has now hit me. Where she's 7 now, but it's like, I don't know. It's like this detachment thing, which is a very weird feeling. But never in my dreams could I ever, like, even when if I get mad or yell, I feel bad immediately. I'm like, okay, maybe I need to decompress.
Oh, I go cry. I'm like, oh,
yeah, I'm just like, because I don't, yeah, exactly. I could not imagine killing my own kids, killing anyone for a matter of fact. Like, but it is very, I mean, there have been days where there's so much stress and I feel myself blacking out and just not being able to like coherently drive. Like, so I'll try not to drive or like just do normal tasks. Yeah. But the thought of like going completely like into psychosis where I'm hearing voices to then tell me to kill my kids, I just can't imagine that. So I'm like, what level do you have to get to for that to happen?
I think one of the things that I find interesting and disheartening at the same time about this trial, though, is also the fact that she went to go seek help. It's not like she didn't go get help. She said she had postpartum depression, so she went and saw a doctor. She had gone to another doctor and had herself put into like psychiatric treatments, and they told her to double her medication. And it's like, she also told her friends and family, like, hey, she was having suicidal like ideations, and she thought like her children needed to be safe. Part of the thing, because her is one thing, but also like as a medical system, what are we doing? And how do we support mothers in a way that is beneficial to and this woman getting to psychosis when people knew that there was a problem, and her not getting the help that she needed, which is also why there's this huge band of women who are helping raise money for her. There's, the people who are outside the courthouse, the women who are, championing and cheering for her almost as if she's the victim, in addition to all of the conversations that are being had on social media and has been driven by social media by other moms. The conversation that it is having around mental health for moms, the fact that we're still having an issue in this country after the Andrea Yates, which is crazy that the psychiatrist from that trial stood trial today. It's like, what are we doing?
Well, from personal experience, when I've gone in saying like I have anxiety, I have depression, they just give me a bunch of pills. Or they'll give me a phone number for a therapist. But then when I call, they're like, do this thing. They make it so hard to make the appointment that it just makes you not want to do it because it's adding more stress on you. Like, I feel like if you're going into your primary care with an issue, mental health issue, please don't give me pills, because some of those pills made me sleepy, drowsy, made me feel worse. I don't like to take any pills, so I don't want that. I think what they should be able to do, in a case like mine, which is a lot simpler than hers, actually make the appointment for me and make sure I go, but don't make it like a billion hoops. And then don't just medicate people. Also, like, maybe be more accountable. Like, if you know someone is dealing with something crazy, find a way of checking up on them. They charge all this money for insurance and all this crap. Like, you can afford it. Maybe use that instead of putting it into whatever they're doing it to. Because she clearly had issues prior, and it seemed to, because she was a labor and delivery nurse, so she's dealing with kids and birth and babies already, and then having your own 3, like, I don't really know how she would deal with that, because she's probably seeing people have these kids and feel fine, or some people, maybe she's starting to feel like, why do I feel like this? Right. You know? I don't know. But like I said, I could never imagine going into that and doing that, but I also understand the perspective of how does someone get to that point of completely hearing a voice? Because she heard the voice, like, that her and the kids would be safe if they went to heaven. But and if she didn't do it, they would be unsafe. But my thing is, like, what would they be unsafe from if the worst thing that could happen to you is to be killed or die? You know? Yeah. So it's like the fact that your brain can't even, like, figure that part out. Because it's like, you want them to be safe. And if you don't send them to heaven, they won't be safe. But then you're already doing the worst thing that could happen to them. Yeah.
What do you think about the conspiracy theories about the timing of, like, somebody was like at 5:29 this happened, and then at 5:34 he said he went to CVS but he couldn't get the Pedialyte that she asked for, and he said he was going to get the off-brand one, but in the CVS bag you can clearly see that the Pedialyte that's on brand is in that bag. And then he said that he wasn't home, but his iPad thingy that he used, he said I didn't use, but then he did use it because it was in there and the evidence is there. And then he said he wasn't home, but about 5:55 and 5:50, so she had like 3 minutes to kill 3 children. Sir, were you home?
Listen, I just find it.
By the way, I just semi kind of made that up. That's not the exact time frame. I'm just saying.
Yeah, she's just giving an example. I mean, look.
Oh, and jump.
I find it. My opinion, this is not a fact or a proven, I just find it a little bit unbelievable that how much does she weigh?
She's small. She's not a big girl.
Because forget movies, when you actually strangle someone, it takes, because you can strangle someone, like choke them and they pass out and wake back up, but to strangle them to the point where they are dead, it's a lot of energy. And that's 3 kids. And I know they're small kids, but that's still a lot of energy. And she had, you said less than 3 minutes or something?
Yeah, it wasn't very long. It was like literally like 9 minutes or something.
Yeah, I don't know. And he's on her side. Like, he's not like combating her or saying, like, you know.
She said she did it after she jumped.
Yeah.
So I had time to do all that, use all my energy,
and then
cut
commit
myself
suicide.
Up, and then jump when I'm paralyzed, and still somehow tell you.
Look, I have a very
conspiracy.
I have a very I don't want all the men to come for me, but like, I have a hard time believing men as it is. So I'm gonna just say I'm a little skeptical on that one. I think it's easy to just blame the woman and say the crazy lady did it, because how many times we get called crazy for things that people don't know when we're overwhelmed? Oh, why are you yelling? Oh, why are you doing that? Why are you acting like this? Not even acting, like, why are you raising your voice? Oh, maybe because this is the 50th thing you've done to me today and I can't take it no more, and my stress level and my blood pressure is here. Yeah, I'm gonna let the TikTokers dive into that investigation, but I won't be there to say I didn't tell you so.
You won't be in the comment section.
We'll be in the comment section. But yeah, you know, I don't know. That just seems a little hard to believe.
Yeah.
Unless she's a superhuman.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we're gonna put a pin in that one. That might be a conversation for the next few days of trial.
My thing is, while you're going through all of this, like, you have the energy to get remarried. Like, I'm not saying don't. Maybe you look for support in places, but I don't know. I can't speak on what I'm going through a divorce, but it's like, yes, you want to be in the comfort of someone else, but damn, the whole marriage and moving on with your life, and your ex-wife killed your kids.
And if you're the new wife, like, girl, really? You were like, that one.
I mean, some women, isn't there a woman right now trying to marry Chris Watts in jail, and he murdered his wife, 2 kids, and the wife was pregnant?
Yes.
I mean, there's some weird women out there. I don't know her motive. Apparently her motive, the Chris Watts one, is some people are like she just must be deranged, or some people are like she's getting close to him to off him. I don't know. The theories on TikTok are very interesting.
You went down a rabbit hole.
Lots of rabbit holes.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, Mr. Patrick has been busy.
He has been. He has been very busy. I know I saw something today about, he looked very stressed on TMZ with the new wife. And speaking of Mr. Clancy here, something that I know I didn't tell my parents about when I was going through what I went through after having my first son is, and to be honest, I didn't know how to name it, so I didn't even know that I was going through postpartum. It was probably like 2 years later when a girlfriend of mine had a baby, and she's like, oh, I'm going through postpartum depression. And I said, what is that? And that's what she explained to me, what was happening to, what had happened to me. And I was like, oh, shoot, I definitely went through that. And I had told my ex-husband at the time that, hey, these are all the things that I'm feeling and this is what's happening. And so I think about, and I don't know what this was like for you, if we feel supported by our partners or the men that we're with when they do not understand what is happening to us, and because we're always strong, we have everything handled, we're handling the house, we're handling the children, we're handling half the bills, we're dealing with all of these things.
Sorry.
We're dealing with all these things, including all the bills. And what responsibility do you think, or accountability maybe, that men, sorry y'all, should have in terms of the support that they provide for their partners or for the women who are having their children?
I think, first of all, there are some really great men out there who are super supportive.
100%.
I also think there are men out there who may also be dealing with things and they don't understand what they're going through. So they may not understand or want to understand, or they're scared to understand what you're going through. There are also some men who refuse to even believe that you're going through anything. And I think when you deal with those ones, they make it particularly difficult for you to get better. So I didn't know I had ADHD. I knew I had severely bad anxiety and panic attacks. Just describing the fact that certain situations, like driving on the freeway or paranoia from overthinking and panic attacks that would make me black out, seemed silly and stupid. So if I'm crying from having a panic attack, that's because my body has just gone into overdrive. But it seemed like it was nothing, or it was not something that was understandable in that case. In this case, I don't think he was maybe the best husband that maybe understood what she was dealing with, because I don't know, just the way the case played out, the way the murder, if I can call it murder, I mean, it is murder, but where was he?
Right.
You know, and then he's already remarried. He's already been caught in Manhattan with his new wife. We all have the right to move on. Maybe he needed a support system. This happened in 2023? It's 2026. But think about it. It happens in 2023. You have a year or so of dealing with it. What point in between all of this did you then meet someone and then get married? And I don't know. It's all very interesting.
Yeah, because I don't know, and I'm blessed enough now that I'm in a new relationship, and I think about how many questions my partner would ask now before.
Yeah,
this
how
level
many,
of
are you
medications,
okay?
How many appointments do I have to make? How many doctors and psychiatrists do I have to see? How many cocktails of medications before? Also, I'm like, hey, yo, maybe let me take the kids and give her a break for a second. Or I don't know what their family dynamic is. I don't know if they have a village, which is a conversation for another day about how we don't even have villages anymore, and we're still expected to have the same amount of children. And statistics say that we're having less kids than we ever did before. And it's like, who the hell is helping us? Where's the village? Where are the people to help us navigate? And because then if you don't have kids, then you're considered a brat as a woman, and something's wrong with you. And if you decide to have kids where you're supposed to just be maternal and know what to do, but it's like, this is my first time too. Shit.
Yeah, and some people don't feel maternal. Some people don't feel a connection. Some people don't want it, like, at the time. You know, they have a kid, and then you're like, oh my God, why don't I feel like I want to be a mom? Which is completely okay. Yeah. You were not a mom. Like, shit, sometimes you still want your mom. You still want to be taken care of. So, like, you can have those feelings, and it's normal. For somebody to make you feel bad about it, they are the problem.
I was looking at some of the comment section during this Clancy case, which I try not to do just because it's too much. And as somebody who's very empathetic, I tend to like take on sometimes some of those feelings. And so then it becomes hard for me to sleep, and then anxiety, and then all the things, right? And I'm watching the comments from men, and it's fascinating because they'll say, oh yeah, that's why I don't want to have kids with some women these days. Or that's why, you know, I would never. And I'm like, but you wouldn't know because you haven't taken the time to understand it, because as a society, do you remember, I'm a little older than you, but do you remember when Brooke Shields came out in the 90s and said, or like early 2000s, and said she had postpartum depression, and like everybody went off on her about not being a real woman, and the blogs were going off about how she was like a crazy and postpartum depression is not a real thing. And then Alyssa Milano a few years later comes out and she has that conversation about having postpartum depression. And it's only now that in the last 20 years that we're beginning to have more serious dialogue around the topic, but it's still, most people do not understand it. And as women, we're also not prepared or warned from our moms or grandmothers or whatever. You're just supposed to thug it out and figure it out. But for some women, that's just not the case.
Because like on here, it says common signs of PPD. Persistent sadness, hopelessness, or frequent crying,
Yeah.
severe mood swings, difficulty bonding with the baby, loss of interest in normal activities, changes in sleep or eating habits, thoughts of self-harm or harming the baby. I cried so much, thought it was normal. Like I said, did obviously take care of the baby, but it just all felt like I had to do it, but it wasn't like something I wanted to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it was scary. I didn't have my mom. I was thrown into this from still at a crazy job where I was still working, had 1 week off. What am I supposed to do with 1 week off? That was insane. Definitely wasn't sleeping, didn't want to do anything. And I still have that loss of interest and motivation of like, what is the point in doing anything? And I think a lot of that has to do with unresolved issues from then. So I don't know, like everything feels like almost like a depressing task. And I think people don't tell you that. Like, would you know to Google that? Like,
right. It's fascinating because as we're having this conversation, I'm even realizing something about myself. I thought I was alone in my loneliness when I had the boys. I didn't realize how isolated I was. I was in an unfamiliar place. My parents live across the country. I have the privilege of having amazing parents who stayed with me for 5 weeks. After I had Josiah in particular, but once they left, then there was like all the special needs diagnosis, and then he like wouldn't eat, and then we were missing milestones, and oh my God, I'm about to cry. And I think about like all the times I was by myself in hospital rooms where like I didn't know what was happening with my son. Again, it's realizing like you don't know what you don't know. And like you said, it makes me really sad for her, for just our journeys as women, as how isolated we are when we have a baby, and the assumption is that we are just supposed to know what we're doing. And I don't, especially when you're a first-time mom, you don't know what you don't know. They send you home and you're like,
here, go home. Here's
damn,
the car seat.
Then you're like, what am I, okay, now what?
Just like staring, you're like, oh, hey.
How you doing?
What do you do now? You're like SpongeBob? I don't know.
So you're figuring out what they like. You're figuring out, the milks and the formulations, and I couldn't breastfeed. And then somebody told me that I was failing because I didn't breastfeed and I couldn't, but they don't know my situation. And then people go, oh, do you want to have more kids? And maybe this is just me spewing my own trauma. And clearly I needed it with these conversations with another mom, because like I didn't tell my parents until 5 or 6 years later that I had had a miscarriage, but I didn't know anybody who had one. So the only person who knew was my therapist. My girlfriends at the time didn't have children. So like who who do you tell as you're having these experiences? I knew to go get a therapist just because I could, and I know that that's a privilege, and I know that's a privilege that I have and have had for a long time. But this case makes me so sad, because how many women are dealing with psychosis? How many women are dealing with postpartum depression and miscarriages and going through depression and anxiety, and it can be debilitating. And what support do we have around us and the villages around the mothers and not just the children? And then in addition, how much did the medical system fail her children?
When you think about it, when you go home from like a cosmetic procedure or when you go and buy a car, you get like pretty thick instruction manuals. I remember when I went home with my kid, they gave me like 2 pieces of paper. There was one night where I thought her hiccups meant I had to like call 911 and take her to the hospital because she's gonna die. It's like, why don't we get like a thick book to actually, that like, if we have no one to talk to, or it's like, if you feel these signs, call this number. If you think this is happening, you can't do this. If like, there needs to actually be some type of like support, so you're not just gone home. Once the car seat is in the car, go your merry way. And they kick you out of the hospital after what, like 3 days, 2 days or something?
And then you never see them again.
You're like, okay, you were bathing her, what do I do now? Like, I don't know. It's very confusing. It's like they give you more instructions for like a car than a human being.
I agree.
And then you feel weird if you ask, you're like, well, what do I do with? And I know there's like certain places and things you can call, but they make it so hard to access that it's an added chore to get to. And I'm pretty sure all the kids went to like appointments, doctor's appointments, right? You got to go to checkups and stuff. Did they not see how she was feeling? Like, I'm pretty sure you can, I feel like you can tell when somebody's not all there.
You had mentioned that, how did no one notice as she took the kids to?
Yeah, so what is, I think because America is so big, there is like a loss of accountability when you go to these appointments. If somebody misses repeats, I think there needs to be like a check or something done, because if she missed them, that needs to be done. But if she was accompanying her kids to these appointments, you should be able to tell that somebody's not all there. Right. I feel like sometimes you can, like, even when I'm tired and sad, people can always see it, like, we see it in your eyes. Yeah. You know, we see that you're like, are you okay? I think you can tell. And it's just like, I think here everything is a transaction. It's like, it's done, okay, sign off, here's your meds, leave, here's your meds, just self-medicate. I don't like, but like I said, I do not like to put anything in my body, and I think that really does affect how your brain chemistry works. And there are other ways to heal, I believe. I just think overall it's a failure in the system. It's a failure in people around her. I feel like her husband failed her. I think it's a bunch of different things. Am I saying she's innocent? No, but I can't completely blame her.
You know, I think about what you said, how even going to the pediatrician, right? So the baby was 8 months old. She had already gone twice to see a doctor about having postpartum depression. She'd already called into the hotline twice about not doing well. And so I found it really interesting today that as the defense was wrapping up today, or the defense rested, that the first rebuttal witness was Dr. Abram Mack, who's a psychiatrist. And I'm going to read what he said. So in his testimony is the clearest statement yet of the prosecution's entire theory. He testified that the killings were methodical, organized, done one by one, and intended to achieve a goal. Per courtroom reporting, he described Clancy taking Dawson to the basement first, wrapping an exercise band around his neck, saying, "Go to God," as she strangled him, then repeating the process with Cora and Callan. He also testified her suicide attempt afterward involved multiple methods, which he characterized as similarly deliberate and organized, directly rebutting the psychotic break framing. What are your thoughts on what he said?
I mean, he's saying it's deliberate and organized, but somebody trying multiple methods to kill themselves isn't deliberate or organized. They're trying multiple methods because clearly one of them isn't working. You know, like if somebody already knows how to kill themselves, I feel like the plan is a lot more efficient.
And she's a nurse. I think we're forgetting she's a nurse. And maybe this is just me speaking more highly of what I believe her skill sets to be, but I don't know if those are all the different routes that she would have gone to deliberately commit. I don't know if we're allowed to say that word, but I don't know. If Andrea Yates can get away with, which it took a retrial for her as well, to have an insanity plea, does that work here? What I find interesting about what Dr. Mack is saying here, is he saying methodical because they were killed in the same way? Are we saying methodical because this was preemptive? Is he saying it's organized because it was done the same way? Done one by one? I mean, you're not going after all three at the same time. Like, that's not a thing here. So I guess intended to achieve a goal, but yes, what he's actually described here is a psychotic break to me. I don't know if I'm the crazy
I feel
one.
like that too. But then I'm trying to look at like other cases. Like, for example, when Chris Watts killed his family, he took like the two other girls to, like, I think he strangled them and then dumped them in like a oil well or something like that. Killed the pregnant wife differently. That was all different. That seemed like something he just did. He planned to do it. He was like, all right, I'm gonna do this. It wasn't really, this seems like she was having a psychotic break because it's all the same way. It was all done as though she believes it has to be done like this because this is how they'll go to heaven. Yeah. That's what it's giving. I can't say, that's correct, but just does it seem like a person of right mind if she is the one who did it?
I am putting it out there. Can we get a scientist or somebody who is a specialist in understanding?
Pharmaceutical, pharmacist.
Anybody. Actually, let's get a pharmacist who can tell me what all these medications are, what they're meant for, and what a combination of them does to somebody who already has depression and psychosis. Yep. I need to know that.
Because that would actually give us some type of information on her state of mind and how often was she taking it, and what happened if you're taking something and then you miss, like, something like birth control. Right. You take it, you miss, you get your period, or you may get pregnant. What happens if you're constantly taking something, you don't take it properly, you take breaks? What does that do to your brain chemistry, going up and down, And
double it, which is what one doctor told her to do. A psychiatrist told her to double one of her medications because it wasn't working.
If it's not working, why do you think doubling it would make it better? I think it's just like when you take too many antibiotics and your body no longer reacts to it. I think it's just going to continue to lead down that path. I don't know. This is very scary. I think people should think very hardly when they want to. People should think very hard about wanting to be a parent, because there are people who seem to think having a kid is very easy, not just financially, but mentally. And then they will not help their kids grow up or look after them to become positive members of society, and then you have this domino effect of things that happen, and then you have stuff like this happens. I think people really need to understand and have the support when they want to have kids, and I think medically there needs to definitely be a change.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking for sure. So we'll find out in the next week or so what the verdict will be in the Clancy case, and when that gets updated, we will update you as well. But what's happening with this Lil Durk case is a mess.
And I just feel like this is making it very difficult for creatives to be creative. And once again, not saying he is innocent or not, but Lil Durk is, if you don't know, involved in a federal murder for hire case, which actually stems from the death of his friend King Von in 2020. Basically, he's being accused of setting up a murder for hire plot to get rapper Quando Rondo killed. However, it ended up killing, I believe it was his cousin instead, and the hit actually took place at the Beverly Center. Yeah. So it's not that far.
No, no, quite scary.
I think what's terrifying about this is that, first of all, when it comes to, this is not the first time, a murder or hire. My favorite rapper, Young Dolph, got murdered, and there were so many conspiracies about who got him killed, what happened, and other people were getting accused. Other rappers, which I won't even bring into this, but I just don't understand, when you reach a level of success, why continue to be involved in things like this that could take your life and everything you've worked for? Why aren't you just getting up and living the best life with your family and loved ones?
I think it's hard though. It's hard as you know, I think about the world that he comes from, and when you're coming from that world, from the gang world, when you're coming from the rap world and the music industry, I think it's hard to disassociate from the people that you have loyalty to, or the people that you ran the streets with as a kid, and people you believe you owe in that process. And I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I think it's, you know, just from my perspective as somebody who, in my experience, it's really hard. I mean, you know how it is, like, you're supposed to take care of your family, you're supposed to take care of your cousins, you're supposed to take care of your friends, and especially when you're folks who grew up together, or you have this loyalty of, whether allegedly gang affiliation, that's your family, that is the family that you choose to build, and so, or you've built with. And so I think a part of me can understand why you would stay in that world. Not saying that I recommend that or that's what you should or should not do, but I understand it. I think what I find the most fascinating about this case, and also concerning, as you mentioned, as a creative, is this will set the precedence for the fact that they don't really have evidence, and the evidence that they're using are the lyrics and YouTube and the rap that he's done
in order to prove that he did this killing. I mean, this is a developing story. The jury selection, I believe, is day 2 in downtown LA, which I think there is a way to, if you're a member of the press, to go down and see. It just depends, because it is a high profile case. There are different restrictions, and it will probably take some time, because when it is somebody who is high profile, you have to basically sift through people who are fans, people who don't like him. How do you know there are affiliates who are, this is going to be hard, because you don't know who is what is where, and what is going on. This makes it difficult. I mean, we've seen this with the Reiner case, the O.J. Simpson. There's so many celebrity cases that we've seen where jury selection is typically going to take longer than your average Joe. Like you said, they are trying to use his music, YouTube videos as evidence. It's problematic because typically you want to talk about your life experiences, which makes your music relatable and authentic. Should that be able to be used in this case? Because is there like a moral thing there? Like, if your loved one was the one murdered and they basically went on, I'm not saying he did, but say somebody went and did a song, like, what was the guy, is it T, what is his name? That song, Then I Beat the Case, that young rapper who went to jail. What is his name? He killed the camera guy, or him and his people killed the camera guy. TK. He kind of basically was showing off about everything they did in a song. In that case, I'm like, hell yeah, use those lyrics, because what he did was, and he seemed happy about it almost. But then in this case, I think it's different in every case. If somebody is a cold-blooded killer out here doing this and then showing off, sure. Throw the book at them. If they literally are admitting it specifically in the lyrics, and it matches up with like the evidence and what happened at the scene, okay. But in this specific case, I don't know, because yes, obviously he's sad about the murder of King Von, and that's his friend. And there's alleged evidence that, he flew from Miami to LA and then had other people fly there, and he had them fly coach and said, don't book any flights that are under me. That evidence seems more valid than this particular song. But I think that argument is something that should be on a case-by-case basis. We saw it with Young Thug. But then it's like, are you using that with actors? Are we doing that in the movie world? Are you going to use somebody's movie? Because then it's like the screenwriter. It's like, how do we even know these rappers are writing their own songs at this point?
I mean, and we don't. I mean, with Rick Ross, for example, he was a corrections officer. So all the stuff he was singing, whether or not he could relate to it or not, is questionable, considering some of these rappers aren't gang members. They're not affiliated with the streets. Some of these kids are from the suburbs.
And how do we really know who's writing what? Because obviously movies have screenwriters, so it's like we can't blame the actor. Are we going to go and look at Rob Reiner's son, see if he said anything in an interview? Like, are we going to use those against him? Because there was some things that, that were played. So how are we going to across the board this? Because if you're going to use rappers' lyrics, what else are you going to do? You can't just use rappers' lyrics. I feel like it's got to be fair across the board. Like I said, it is a case-by-case basis. If somebody literally makes a song showing off about getting away with something, and it's explicitly obvious, okay, I understand that. But in this, I think it really does kind of draw the line on what is like the First Amendment, what you can really say, and how that's going to make people not want to be authentic. I don't know. It is a developing case.
It'll be interesting. I mean, like Alyssa just mentioned, it is, or like you mentioned, it is day 2. Jury selection just started as of the shooting. And all the things that are happening here is it's developing. It's, the victim was not the intended target. It was botched, according to what prosecutors are saying.
It was his cousin.
It's
roughly 18 shots were fired. Why does he get charged if he didn't pull the trigger? Well, I guess they don't have to prove that he personally intended to shoot the person, but it's more that like he coordinated the operation, which kind of goes back to the whole thing with the flights and, the conspiracy and how everything was put together. So the plan, so the person orchestrating it all. What prosecutors are saying it connects it to Durk, the financial support for the people going to LA, which goes back to the flights, hotel arrangements. Apparently, some of them stayed at the Sheraton Universal, which I was just at. I go to Universal a lot, love Universal, but why? I feel like using a hotel that's like by a theme park is wild. I mean, it made me throw them off because why would they use a hotel that's usually used by family members?
Yeah. Yikes. That, I mean, that's all I can say is yikes. We're going to be following this daily, and we will let you know on the next conversation, this next episode. I just know that all of this is fascinating.
I mean, look, there's crazy things happen to us. I just told you my story time, which is for another time, which in itself is like a Netflix documentary because I'm just like, I don't understand. But the fact that there's so many different things happening, it's like a series movie. I don't even know.
Are we in a simulation? Like, that's what it feels
honestly,
like.
it just doesn't make sense because that's not the only case. There's so many things going on. Like, I'm still waiting to hear about this whole David case. Yeah. There's Nolan Wells. There's political stuff going on. But just check your mental health, guys. Just turn everything off for a minute.
Take a break. Unless it's us, come back.
Yeah, come back because we can be your friends.
Yes, let's be friends.
We can be your peace. Yeah. But I think it is really important to take a break because this is a lot.
It is a lot. I'm not even going to get started on the David case because that's also coming up in September, and that's going to be a hard one.
That's a whole other.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think that's a hard one because of being a parent, but also of being.
I'm a girl.
I've been a teenager. I remember being like trying to be cool, trying to hang out with who I wanted to hang out with, and how my mother was like, no. And now I'm like, damn, thank God. Thank God. Anyway, it's for the next episode. So stay tuned because there's clearly we have a lot to say because we can't wait to talk about it. If you have looked this up on Threads, we're going to talk about it. Lil Durk, David, everything that's coming up and everyone's talking about, we got you, and you're going to get the real raw opinion that's also relatable.